Happy anniversary, Bethel Lutheran Church in Greenbush, Minnesota. Hi, Darwin Hewardson, calling from San Antonio, Texas. Congratulations, this is a huge, huge day for our church. 125 years, my goodness. I don't know, if you're like me, I have an anniversary or I get together with folks in celebrating high school reunions and we keep saying, gosh, how did we get here so fast? Nevertheless, here we are. One of the things that I often share with people is sometimes we have to go backwards in order to go forwards. And I think that's really why we do anniversaries and why we celebrate them and why we should celebrate them. Because it's a time for us to stop and think about all that has taken place. Think with me this morning. Just think how many baptisms, how many funeral services, how many other services, how many Lady Aids meeting, all of the different things that have happened over 125 years. And you know, in the midst of all of that, I'm so mindful that no doubt there were times of just pure joy, but there were also times of grief and tragedy, and times that we needed to come together to support one another and to extend to each other God's grace and God's love. So today, as we are in this space, I'm mindful again of how important it is for us to go back in order to go forward. And as I think about that for myself, I'm mindful that October 28th, 1984, I was ordained in this church into the ministry of the Lutheran Church of America. And as I remember that ordination, one of the things that I still smile about is my niece Melanie, who was 6 years old at the time. And she was so excited about her uncle, and she was telling everybody that her uncle was being ordained into a new mini-series. And I think sometimes maybe it is a little bit of a mini-series. Seriously, I think that the life that we have in the church is so rich, and there are so many things that we've experienced and we will experience. The ordination was indeed a very special time, a time in which I was gathered with family and friends, and many of you were probably there in some ways. And one of the things that happened, though, very suddenly, maybe 3 days before the ordination, my mother died suddenly. And that really took us all by surprise. And I remember Pastor Glenn, who was the pastor at that time at our church, basically said, Darwin, you know, I don't know how we're going to do it, but by God's grace, we are going to make it through these next few days. And we did. And I don't remember a lot about the ordination itself, but I do remember these words as I was invited to respond. And I just remember saying, I'm realizing today that the ministry that I am being ordained into is the very ministry that's sustaining me. And my guess is that's probably the same for you as you reflect on this church, as you reflect on how you have been sustained by the church, by God's grace, and by each other. So enjoy today, celebrate, and remember, we not only celebrate today, but we will celebrate all year long as we remember 125 years of ministry from Bethel Lutheran Church.
Good morning. My name is Glenn Stadler. I don't know if anybody there remembers me. I've changed a little less hair, different hair color, and a few more wrinkles, but I don't know how that happened, but it just happened. I'm pretty low tech, so I barely know what I'm doing right now in recording this, but I hope you can see it and experience this. I want to applaud your effort to celebrate the 125 years of doing a ministry together. I think you have a lot of reasons to celebrate. So Lee and I are currently living in Gilbert, Arizona, which is a suburb of Phoenix. We moved here back in January of 1999. I started a mission congregation, which is a very odd thing to do. 0 people, and this is Mormon country. So actually, a lot of my first members were Roman Catholics, and we started very, very humbly in an old elementary school, and then to another elementary school, and then I rented space in a newer high school, and eventually we purchased land and built a building. It had some ups and downs. It went very well for a while, and then sometimes not so great, but it was a lot of fun. I retired in 2017. Lee was diagnosed with bladder cancer. She ended up having a couple surgeries, and now she's been cancer-free ever since. So she's just doing fine. I now major in being a spouse, husband, a father, and also to a grandfather, and which I love, or two grandchildren. Our daughters live in Phoenix. Sarah serves the oldest Lutheran church in the state of Arizona, and it's our downtown congregation, downtown Phoenix, and it's primarily serves the homeless community. She's been there 12 years. Mindy, and she's thinking about doing something else, but Mindy, our younger daughter, is married with 2 children, works as a PA in dermatology. Obviously, as those of you who are older, our grandchildren are our greatest joys in some ways. Stella is 8, Case is 4. We generally do childcare once or twice a week. I do some supply preaching. Not that I really want to do that. There's a shortage of clergy to fill in, so I do that. But recently I have taken over the I Help program, and I don't know if you have that up north or not, but once a month our congregation provides a couple meals and a place for 18 homeless people to sleep. So I'm just starting that, and this is a ministry that the congregation's been doing up to 2-3 years now. I also write a community newsletter for fun. Why not, right? I got about 350 of my immediate neighbors receive this newsletter. During the winter months, I pull out a fire pit into the alley every Friday night, and I invite neighbors to sit around the fire. I think community is important, and I really enjoy just visiting. I also spent a huge amount of time having coffee, meals with neighbors and friends. I'm a pretty social person. I make Starbucks a lot of money, and of course we enjoy traveling. We're blessed with friends who have vacationed with us for over 40-some years. Our family arrived in Greenbush. The question is, when we came in the summer of 1980, after spending 2 years in Noonan, North Dakota. I believe we left the summer of 1986 when I took a call to be the co-pastor at Trinity Lutheran Church in Pelican Rapids, Minnesota. I have countless memories of Greenbush, and at this video I'll only mention a few. I think Bethel was probably the kindest and the most generous congregation that I've ever served. I'm not sure if Bethel still has the reputation of treating pastors like royalty, but my experience was unlike any other place that I have been. I remember walking into the sanctuary, and I'm recording this on my birthday, which is a little bit weird, but I remember walking into the sanctuary, and apparently back then the service started, at least the pastor was at the back. I walked into the sanctuary, and the organist had was playing Happy Birthday, and to my surprise, it was a celebration of my birthday. And I will always remember that. That has not happened any other place. I remember the amazing parsonage, the addition that was added so our family could expand. It was one of the nicest homes that I've had a chance to live in. I remember the wonderful neighbors on our block. Louie and Irene Allen were like grandparents to our children. I remember purchasing a couple of Chevys. Actually, I think it was 3 from Belmer Thompson, and a car, I think, from the Erickson car lot back in those days. I remember Bible Camp Lake of the Woods. It was rustic, but it was effective. I just remember it was so much fun when Roy and Gloria Erickson worked there, and just wonderful, wonderful people. I remember the wonderful youth and some of the great trips that we took together. I also remember teaching confirmation classes, and one, at least in particular, was probably the most challenging class that I've had in my 40-some year career. But it was just a good memory. It's a good memory for me. I remember the incredible leadership of the congregation giants like Carol Larson and Bernie Nelson, just to name a few, but there were others. I remember Jan Wallene, who wasn't just a great secretary, and she was, but she was equally a great person, caring and loving to so many in the community. I remember discussions held at the cafe and picking up pizza at the Y Drive. I remember Halloween in the school, which is just a cool tradition, and I don't know if you're still doing that, but that was fascinating. I remember the wonderful staff at the school, which launched my kids into being excellent students. I remember the unbelievable number of people who would stay after worship for coffee. Many times our coffee crowd would be bigger than the worship crowd, and I don't know what that says about the pastor at the time, but you folks, at least back then, enjoyed coffee and the cookies or donuts or whatever it is that would be there. I remember the sensational choir. I remember Brenda Erickson, now Brown, as a high schooler who would sing like an angel. Oh yeah, and I remember potato dumpling days, where people would show up sometimes 3 times on the same day just to enjoy these heavy, buttery delights. I remember the Bethel women who were incredible, who worked hard and hour after hour to raise funds for worthy causes. So for me, it was a love affair. I married, I taught, I cried, I laughed, I agreed, I disagreed. But you shaped me into the pastor and in the person that I am today. I just want you to know how grateful I am for the honor of sharing the love of Jesus with you. These were good days for me, and hopefully not too painful for you, as I learned how to pastor under your tutelage. So thank you. Thank you for all that you have done and all that you will do as the coming days and the celebration that we have to bring Christ to the world.
Hi everyone, my name is Heather Sugden. I grew up Heather Stenberg in Greenbush. I grew up at Bethel. I graduated from high school in 1994, so a lot of my Bethel memories are from the 80s and early 90s. I now live in New Jersey with my husband Greg, and I have a 13-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old son. I serve at Redeemer Lutheran Church in Vineland, New Jersey. It is a farming community in the southern half of the state. So every morning I drive past tractors and farm fields, and I remember Greenbush. I have lots of great memories from Bethel. Probably what I think of off the top of my head is all the religious education we had. And when I was a kid, we had a lot of it. There was Sunday school, there was confirmation, there was vacation Bible school, and we even had release time on Wednesdays when I was a kid. You would leave school and walk to Bethel. Um, and it was great. We always had great teachers. I remember the cookies, of course, from class when teachers would bring us cookies. But I also remember that we were encouraged to ask questions, which I think now that I'm a pastor, I think, wow, how lucky was I to have these teachers who were not afraid to let kids ask all sorts of questions. And we did. We had great teachers who could handle them, and just led great classes. So I'm very grateful for that. I also remember how the entire congregation supported the youth. We'd leave for camp, or when we went to the National Youth Assembly, people would show up. I remember, I think we were getting on a bus to go to the national gathering, and people from the congregation showed up. And of course, I remember Gladys Hunfit being there. She would show up, and I believe she had a card for every youth that was going on the trip to encourage us and give us a little extra spending money. And I think about that now, someone taking that time to really encourage youth in such a personalized way. It was a fantastic way to grow up and to be encouraged in the faith. And along with that, how we as youth were encouraged to lead worship. We would do skits at Christmas time and the Easter worship, and other times when I think one time the pastor was away and we helped lead worship, and there were just lots and lots of opportunities to practice those sorts of things and just be encouraged in what we did, which was wonderful. So I remember that. I also remember when Win Flotten would come to visit us at Bethel. He was a missionary. I think he served in Nepal at that time. And I would get so excited because he would tell these incredible stories about living overseas and raising a family there. And just all those stories as a kid were so incredible to me and so encouraging and fun. So lots and lots of stories. Sorry I could go on forever, but thank you, Bethel, for all you did for me in raising me in the faith. Congratulations on 125 years of ministry, and keep it up. I know there will be many, many more youth who benefit from how you pray for them and encourage them and welcome them into the community of faith. God bless you all.